So this is one blockchain explorer for Bitcoin, and you can see that the general information about the network is posted here. The current price just around about $57,000. The current transaction rate, known as the hash rate, the previous transactions over the last 24 hours, and the transaction volume, so the amount of volume of Bitcoin that's gone through the network, and the number of volume in whole Bitcoins there. Okay, so this is the chart of the price, fairly standard. This is the mempool, so this is the amount of transactions that haven't been processed yet at any particular time, and we'll see a better representation of that later on in this video. And then it even has a breakdown of the blocks. So this is the most recent blocks that have been happening, and even the miners, if they're available, if they're public, and also the latest transactions. So you can actually see the amount of transactions going through the network live, as it were. Okay, so this is blockchain.com, where you can type in any transaction, an address or a block, and find out information about it. I'm going to be doing that with something that's slightly notorious, and I don't know if you remember this, but in July 2020 there was a crypto hack, one of the largest crypto hacks that happened in history, and it used Twitter. And what the scam artists did is they posted a link saying that prominent companies like Apple, prominent people like Elon Musk, for example, would double the amount of cryptocurrency for 30 minutes if users deposited crypto to this address, specifically Bitcoin to this address. They managed to compromise around about 130 different accounts, high-profile Twitter accounts, and over the course of 2 hours, between 8 and 10 UTC, they managed to ascertain around about $110,000 in Bitcoin, around about 13 Bitcoin at the time. So this obviously caused a huge furore because a lot of people lost quite a sizable amount of money through not being diligent and not thinking through this situation. Why would someone double some Bitcoin for you? And obviously it was dressed up as a kind of generous activity, but the charitable gesture is very rarely demonstrated on this level, and these individuals actually lost their money. So what we can do is we can actually post this address and see what's happened since into a blockchain explorer. Now I'm going to be using blockchain.com, and we can see that the deposit address on Twitter received a grand total of 12.9 Bitcoin. And we can actually see a breakdown of the transactions as well. So we can actually go into the individual transactions if you wish. There are a lot of them, very small amounts by the looks of things. But there are a huge amount of transactions on this particular wallet. Let me just have a look. There's no rounding, so we can actually go to 10 plus and see how many are there. Okay, so it goes on for quite a while, pages and pages and pages of transactions, basically. A huge amount, 429 to be exact. Okay, so this is just either people depositing or the scam artists sending their crypto into another wallet on the blockchain. Now, this is something that happens very frequently with scams, is that scam artists know that people who know about cryptocurrencies can view any wallet address and know where that wallet address is and how much it has, etc. And they will very quickly move cryptocurrency into another wallet, and then another wallet, and another wallet. So basically, they will effectively launder, I suppose, the cryptocurrency through. But every single transaction has a thread because it's on a centralized or decentralized ledger. Okay, so effectively, even though they are doing this, you can still see it happening. In actual fact, you can trace ultimately the address to this one here, which was not publicized. This was never on Twitter, but it did receive a total of 14.75 BTC because the scam artists actually put some of their own money in it to make the situation look more real, to make it look better, basically, because obviously someone who has Bitcoin may be aware of the fact that they can just type in the address and see what's happening. If there's already some cryptocurrency in that address, then they might be more inclined to deposit. Okay, so there's only a total number of 57 transactions with this. The transactions are sizably larger, 3 Bitcoin, for example, 2.4 Bitcoin. So this is effectively the cash out address, and this address may belong to an exchange in another country, in some part of the world where crypto is not really regulated, and they would be able to exchange it for a fiat currency of some sort in somewhere in the world. And obviously at the moment, because of the price appreciation, this is currently worth $851,000. Okay, so quite a windfall for the scam artists. Okay, there are now numerous companies that have set up investigative arms who are able to see a lot more than is publicly available because they have proprietary information. So basically, every Bitcoin address belonging to an exchange or a centralized entity, they will be able to cross-reference and match up, basically. So there are numerous sources of information here where they have literally gone in with proprietary access and proprietary data and added another dimension to the open source system that is blockchain technology. Okay, we have a certain level of transparency with every blockchain, but obviously if you can apply, with pseudo anonymity, if you can apply an extra layer on top of that, then you can actually get more information out of it. And this is what companies like Chainalysis do. They were able to isolate these wallet addresses basically as ultimately being the ones that the scams were cashing out. Okay, naturally, because it's part of an ongoing investigation, they can't disclose any additional information about anything else that's going on at the moment, because obviously it is law investigation and law enforcement are dealing with it as we speak. But the point is, even with a crypto scam like this, we are able to investigate and see where money goes. Okay, if this was a PayPal scam or a bank transaction scam, as soon as the victim sent their cryptocurrency over, it would disappear. They would no longer have any reference to it. In theory, anyone who deposited into this would actually be able to trace their crypto to any particular wallet that the scam artist chose to send it to. And if they were able to dig deeper and find out where that wallet was, for example, maybe it was on a Binance account or another exchange account, ultimately they might be able to reach out to that exchange and recover their funds. Okay, and I believe that is actually what is happening in the background of this, is that there is some recovery operation underway. Okay. So this is another example. This is the actual address that was used to cash out. Okay, and obviously we can see much bigger amounts going through. We can see when the account was, the last transaction on the account. We can also go back and see when the account was created and every single transaction since. And also, if you click on each transaction, you can also see where that transaction ultimately ended up as well. So there is a flow chart element to this, and it can get very complicated. And you kind of need to have your wits about you if you are going to start tracking transactions through the system, because they expand very, very quickly, and before you know it, you're tracking 20, 30, 40 different cryptocurrency transactions, which can become a little bit of a headache. So there are multiple blockchain analysis tools. This is obviously the Bitcoin one, okay, and is the longest because obviously Bitcoin has been around for the longest. There is an Ethereum scan as well, and this is a graphical representation of Ethereum and Bitcoin and the network operation that's happening. So if I could just quickly explain what's going on here. These are buses, which represent blocks in our metaphor. This is a Bitcoin block, and this is an Ethereum block, and each person here represents a transaction. Okay, so you can see all the transactions are basically slowly going into each of these buses at different rates. Okay, so we can see Bitcoin a little bit slower than Ethereum, but Ethereum has definitely a lot more going on at the moment. These around here are the different dApps or services that exist on the Ethereum network. You can see here Uniswap being quite prominent, Tether, for example, the stablecoin, which is an ERC20 token. Then we've got USDC, another one, another USD ERC20 token. Then we've got MakerDAO and Chainlink, for example. So all these services basically are using the Ethereum network, and these are the most prominent ones at the moment in order. Okay. Bitcoin has no dApps apart from the Lightning Network, which isn't operational on this system at the moment. Okay, so it's just transactions going through, which is why there appear to be less transactions going through the network than Ethereum. Obviously, Ethereum, there is a huge bottleneck, and that can be shown here. 75,000 plus transactions against Bitcoin's mid-20s number of transactions. Okay. You can also see the transaction fee, $1.97 median transaction fee versus Bitcoin's $8.60 transaction. So there are 31,000 pending transactions on the Bitcoin network at the moment, and that's the last block is actually quite some time ago. And the Ethereum transaction, there are at least 75,000. That is what the mempool is referring to, basically. And if we go down here, we can see the mempool represented graphically as people waiting for buses. Okay, obviously they get huge. Bitcoin's ends before Ethereum's, obviously, because it's around about less than half the size. But yeah, we can see that there, and there is a little bit of an issue at the moment going on with Bitcoin. 34 minutes is quite a long time for a blockchain. Usually each transaction is processed every 10 minutes, so I'm not quite sure what is going on at the moment. But we should see that bus effectively fill up, and then it will go through. With Ethereum, we can actually see that happening a lot more often, because obviously the block sizes are different, and there's obviously a lot more transactions going through the network. There we go, there's one going now. Okay, so it's a useful way. In theory, you can click on any of these if you're quick enough, and actually find out what the transaction details are. Okay, so if you're sending a lot of Ethereum transactions or even Bitcoin transactions, not that you'd be able to particularly tell whose transaction is whose, but you theoretically could follow an individual transaction should you wish to. Okay, so yeah, a really useful way of visualizing those systems. Now on this system you can actually track different networks. Okay, so you can track 4 at the moment: Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero. Okay, so if that's useful, brilliant. There's also blockchain scanners for most cryptocurrencies that have their own network. Recently, Binance launched their own smart chain, which has its own smart chain explorer, where you type in the address in the same way, or transaction hash or block or token, and you can get any information you like. Once again, you can look at the latest blocks, who the validator was, and all the latest transactions as well on there. Okay, but you can only view Binance Smart Chain transactions on here. You can't view Ethereum, you can't view anything else. If you want to do that, you use the Ethereum Etherscan tracker, where you can actually track Ethereum transactions and any ERC20 token transactions as well through here. And once again, we have the blocks and we have the latest transactions as well. Now you can save yourself the trouble of finding the individual network if you know the data, and use an aggregator like Blockchain, which tracks 17 different blockchains. Okay, you can use this, and I've actually used this for Dogecoin. Okay, and you can actually find out the latest information about that, and even have a breakdown of who owns what in terms of the market capitalization. So this represents actually the top. All the numbers of Dogecoins owned by different people and different wallets, and we can actually see that something I alluded to in an earlier section is that 67% of the transactions are owned by around about 100 people. 80% are owned by less than 700 people. Okay, so 80% of the network is owned by less than 700 people. So that's a huge risk, that if you're doing your analysis on a particular blockchain project, you would see this and you'd say, this seems to me like a little bit of an issue, in that the majority of the wealth, 80% of the wealth in this network, which is worth 51 billion, okay, so that's a good 40 billion plus, is concentrated in 700 wallets, or fewer than 700 wallets. Okay, the remaining 10 billion is distributed wider. Okay, but who stands to gain the most from here? Someone who's investing in the 10 billion or someone who's investing in the 40 billion? Okay, so that's something you can actually pick up from blockchain explorers like this, which will help you make decisions based on your cryptocurrencies. If we look at Ethereum, for example, and we can go to blockchain and we can go to top accounts, we can actually view the individual users who own the most Ethereum effectively. Okay, when that loads, I'll hopefully be able to show you. There we go. So yes, we've got wrapped Ether, and then we've got an ETH2 deposit contract. So these are two systems, I suppose. They're not particularly owned by individuals. Then we've got Binance, which is an aggregate account. These will be individual holders. Okay. Then we've got Compound. Then we've got Kraken. So the first things that we come up with are not individuals, but they're actually institutions. Okay, so that's very healthy because these institutions hold deposits on behalf of many people. Okay, we can see the transaction count here. Okay, 1.6 million for wrapped Ether. So that theoretically means that 1.6 million people could be involved in that contract. Okay, so it's a lot more distributed, and obviously you can also see that there's been some cross-referencing here, matching up different wallet addresses to different exchanges, which can help you track different transactions around the network. Okay, because if you know it's gone to Kraken and the name tag tells you it's Kraken, then you know that it's an exchange that is going to be withdrawing potentially into fiat currency. And there are systems online that I talk about a little bit later in the trading section that will alert you if there are large transactions going to an exchange, and therefore the price may fall of the token that you are trading. Okay, but there's lots to explore on these. Obviously there are over 2 million accounts. That's probably quite a small amount actually. It's let me just see that there, so you can actually see the total amount of Ethereum accounts. I think at last count it was something like 40-50 million Ethereum accounts, but we can actually see the grand total is 115 million ETH at the moment. Okay, but theoretically you can find any account you want to on these records, even your own. You'll be able to discover if you have an Ethereum account, an Ethereum wallet, and you can actually discover, where your Ethereum is going. Okay, so that's not going to show me at the moment. Never mind. But theoretically, you can boil anything down and you can discover anything. And if you can't, then that's a red flag as well. Okay, any crypto project, any investment in cryptocurrency, you should be able to discover transactions going through the system. Okay, you should have a system like this where you can type in any transaction, any block, any address, and it will display the information about it. If it doesn't, then that's a dubious circumstance where either the transaction data doesn't exist yet or it's not publicly accessible, which with some new cryptocurrency projects may be a thing. Okay, but I'm specifically referencing the OneCoin situation where individual investors were not able to access blockchain data because the blockchain data didn't exist because it was a scam. Okay, so always have your wits about you. Always do as much research and diligence as you possibly can. And we've noticed actually the Bitcoin block has now gone through, so that's good. Okay, so no massive issue there with the Bitcoin network, and obviously the Ethereum network is quieted down as well. Interestingly, also you can choose your timing to exchange through these networks based on how busy they are. Okay, so Ethereum will have a peak and a low every single 24 hours and every week as well, and so will Bitcoin. And you can use these blockchain explorers effectively to discover when those peaks and troughs are. Typically, at the moment, we tend to have a trough in most cryptocurrencies between 8 and 10 UK time, 8 p.m. UK time to 10 p.m. UK time. That seems to be a quiet point in most cryptocurrency networks. So you can actually use transaction trackers like this to find out when the cheapest time to exchange or use a smart contract on Ethereum or do a Bitcoin transaction is actually more effective. So you can actually see the transaction time and transaction fee has actually increased during the course of this video by about $1.50. And that's probably because the amount of transactions going through the network hasn't been able to keep the blocks moving through. Okay, and also we've had an increase as well in the Ethereum transaction as well. So use all the data you can and explore yourself, because there's much more to explore using these blockchain explorers. And the more data you can add to your investment decisions, and the more you know and learn about the blockchain technology and the blockchain infrastructure behind each of these cryptocurrencies, then the better off you're likely to be, and the smarter decisions and the more profit you are likely to make.